You know, it's got a lot of folks in Garland talking right now.
What's that?
It's this proposed 2025 bond program. You're probably seeing the hashtag Grow Garland around.
Right. Hashtag Grow Garland.
And you're likely wondering, okay, what does this actually mean for me, for us?
Right.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
Yeah, think of this as your quick guide. We've waded through the presentation materials, the details.
All that stuff.
Exactly. To pull out the key info so you can really wrap your head around what the city's proposing and, why it matters.
And it's timely, too, because these 4 propositions, they're actually going on the ballot May 3rd.
Coming up soon.
Very soon. Now, some of you might remember the 2019 bond, hashtag Build Garland.
Mm-hmm.
This new one, hashtag Grow Garland, it's got a slightly different angle, a different focus. So let's unpack that difference right away.
Well, what's really interesting is the city's main message with this bond, the 2025 one. It seems to be all about strategic investments to help Garland's economy, grow.
Grow Garland. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their thinking is, look, to keep city services strong, the stuff we all rely on, you need a solid, growing local economy underneath it all.
Right. You need that foundation. And the biggest single piece of this proposal, the largest proposition, is A. That's $230 million.
Wow. Yeah.
And this one really hits close to home because it's all about streets and alleys, the stuff we literally drive on every day.
Absolutely. And the city's logic is, it's pretty straightforward. A healthy economy needs good bones.
Yeah.
And for a city, that means roads, alleys, making sure people and goods can move around efficiently.
So to figure out what needs fixing, they actually did a full assessment back in 2024.
They did. Every single street, every alley, over 2,600 miles of pavement.
Wow.
And they gave each section a score, 0 to 100, like you said, kind of like a report card.
Okay, so what did the report card say?
Well, the results. Not totally shocking if you drive around Garland a lot. Overall streets scored a 70. That's a C.
Okay.
Residential streets were just under that, a 69.
Yeah.
And the alleys, the alleys came in quite a bit lower, 51.
Oof, 51, okay.
Okay.
Not great, not ideal. But the city council, they've set some pretty clear goals with this bond money. Over the next 5 years, they want to get those residential streets up to a 75.
Okay, better.
And bring the alleys up to 60. That $230 million in Prop A, that's the tool they want to use to hit those targets.
And what happens if we don't do this, if Prop A doesn't pass?
That's a really key point. The city's projections show that without this kind of investment, those scores, they won't just stay put. They're expected to drop.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, within 5 years, the average street score could fall to like a 66. And the backlog of needed repairs, it could almost double. We're talking nearly $500 million.
$500 million. Yikes.
So it really feels like one of those invest now or pay way more later situations.
Definitely puts it in perspective. Okay, so Prop A isn't just roads and alleys, though. There's also $20 million in there for gateway and corridor beautification. What's that about? Right. Think about when you first drive into Garland, or you're on one of the main roads, like Garland Road or Jupiter.
Yeah, the main drags.
Exactly. This money would go towards improving things like the medians, the crosswalks, adding better landscaping, maybe nicer signs, basically sprucing up those key routes and entry points.
It's about curb appeal, making it look nicer, boosting that pride of place idea.
Precisely. Making Garland feel more welcoming, look better for everyone, residents, businesses, visitors. It creates a better environment, which they hope encourages people to feel good about being here, maybe even invest here.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's switch gears then. Proposition B, this one's labeled Economic Development, $75 million proposed. This sounds like it ties directly into that whole hashtag Grow Garland theme.
It really does. The city's analysis highlights a challenge. Garland brings in significantly less property and sales tax money per person compared to similar cities.
How much less are we talking?
The estimate is around $88 million less per year. That's, $88 million less funding for city services compared to the average city our size.
Wow, that's substantial.
It is. And compounding that, Garland is almost entirely built out, like 97%.
Right, not a lot of empty land left.
Exactly. So we can't just rely on building new stuff everywhere to grow the tax base. We have to be smarter about it.
Okay, so Prop B has 4 main tools, right, to try and tackle this. Let's walk through them. First up is revitalization.
Right. Revitalization is about taking older shopping centers, maybe tired-looking commercial areas, and helping transform them, attracting new businesses, new investment.
Any examples?
They point to the Fortunate Son restaurant downtown. It got some help from the 2019 bond, and they say it's boosted sales tax. Prop B could also fund things like facade grants, helping existing businesses, update their storefronts.
Okay, giving some love to existing areas makes sense. Second tool, neighborhood vitality. What falls under that?
This is more focused on, well, the neighborhoods themselves, strengthening them. It could mean grants for things like neighborhood signs, community gardens, or cleanups.
Little things that make a difference.
Yeah, or traffic calming speed bumps, things like that. Small infrastructure fixes within a neighborhood. Even programs to help homeowners improve their properties. They mentioned the Where the Heart Is program.
I've heard of that.
And the example in South Garland where some rundown apartments were actually torn down and turned into a park. It's about investing right where people live.
I like that. Building community from the ground up. Okay, third tool, land assembly. Sounds strategic.
Very strategic. Since Garland is mostly built out, the idea here is for the city to carefully buy up smaller, adjacent plots of land in key areas.
Which areas?
They're focusing on South Garland, the medical district area, and around Harbor Point on the lake. The goal is to combine these small lots into larger, more attractive parcels that can draw in bigger developments.
Like what?
Well, they mentioned their success using the 2019 bond to assemble over 50 acres along I-635 and buying land near the VA hospital. A huge long-term goal they keep mentioning is attracting a full-service hospital to Garland. That would be big. A hospital. Okay. And the fourth tool in Prop B is development incentives. These can sometimes be controversial.
They can be. But the city is stressing these aren't blank checks. They're meant to be structured agreements.
Okay.
Designed to attract specific businesses. Garland wants to think major employers, good retailers, restaurants, maybe entertainment venues. The incentive might be helping with public infrastructure needed for the project, or maybe a grant. But the key is it has to show a clear return for the city.
Like jobs, sales tax.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Jobs, sales tax revenue, more amenities for residents. And again, they're focusing these efforts mainly on South Garland, the medical district, and Harbor Point.
Got it. Very targeted. Okay, moving on. Proposition C, cultural arts. $25 million. And this seems mostly about the Granville Arts Center.
Primarily, yes. The Granville, it opened back in 1982.
Wow, okay, so it's been around a while.
It has, and it's a major regional draw.
Yeah.
Over 75,000 visitors a year, an estimated $18 million economic impact. It's a big deal for Garland. But, like any building that age...
Things start to wear out. Exactly. It's showing its age. Some critical systems need attention.
What kind of systems are we talking about?
The big ones are the HVAC, heating and cooling, the fire safety systems, the electrical infrastructure. They're all getting old, nearing the end of their lifespan. Plus, it was built before the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Ah, right. Accessibility.
So there are challenges there that need fixing to make sure everyone can access and enjoy the facility.
So it's really fundamental stuff, not just cosmetic upgrades. What improvements are actually planned if Prop C passes?
Well, funding those core infrastructure upgrades, number one, but also improving seating in the theaters, making them more accessible. They plan to redesign the lobby and box office, make it more modern, more user-friendly, plus create some new classroom and rental spaces, and importantly, improve the connection between the Arts Center and the downtown square, which has seen so much revitalization itself.
Yeah, tying it all together.
The goal is really to make sure the Granville stays a vibrant hub, a source of pride, and an economic engine for the future.
Makes sense. It is a great asset. Okay, finally, Proposition D, Parks and Recreation. $30 million. And this one zooms in on Lake Ray Hubbard, right, at Harbor Point.
That's the focus, yeah. The city sees that waterfront as this incredible asset.
It is beautiful out there.
Maybe underutilized right now. The vision is to make it way more accessible, more inviting for both residents and visitors.
What kind of changes are they looking at specifically?
Things like building walking trails to connect different parts of the area, significantly increasing public access right down to the water.
Oh, that'd be nice.
And adding new park features, recreational amenities, places for people to gather and enjoy the lake.
So kind of creating a destination there, a bit like they did with the downtown square improvement.
That seems to be the model, yes. The hope is that investing in these public improvements will not only be great for Garland residents, but will also spark more private development nearby and make Harbor Point a bigger regional attraction.
Okay, interesting parallel. Right, so we've covered all four propositions. A for streets, B for economic development, C for the Arts Center, D for parks at the lake. Now, the big question, the one everyone asks.
Let me guess.
Taxes. Taxes. How does all this affect my property tax bill? And this is where the 2025 bond is really different from 2019, isn't it?
It is, and this is probably the most critical point the city is trying to communicate. Unlike the 2019 bond, They are stating very clearly, there is no city tax rate increase proposed with this 2025 bond program.
No tax rate increase. Okay, that's surprising maybe. How can they fund potentially hundreds of millions in projects without raising the rate?
The combination of things, really. Remember that tax rate increase that was approved back in 2019?
Yeah.
That plus the city paying off some older debt, freeing up funds, and just the natural growth in property values across Garland over the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
All that together has apparently created enough financial capacity.
Capacity. Okay.
Enough capacity to issue these new bonds without needing to raise the current city tax rate. So that rate, 0.6891 cents per $100 of property value, is set to stay the same.
Good to know. Can you just quickly remind us, how does the city's slice of our property tax bill compare to, like, the schools in the county?
Sure. Your total bill gets split 5 ways. The city of Garland gets about 30% of it.
Okay, less than a third.
Right. The biggest chunk actually goes to Garland ISD, the school district that's around 46%. And the rest covers Parkland Hospital, Dallas County, and Dallas College. So, yeah, the city's part is significant, but it's not the whole pie.
That's helpful context. And for, say, an average homeowner in Garland, what does that 30% translate to in actual dollars per year? Any estimates?
The city used an example based on the average home value, which they peg around $252,000.
Okay.
If you factor in the standard homestead exemption and maybe the senior exemption if you qualify, that city portion works out to roughly $1,200 a year.
About $100 a month for the city part.
Roughly, yeah. And it's worth mentioning, the city council did recently vote to increase those homestead and senior exemptions, which should provide a bit more tax relief going forward, separate from the bond.
Oh, that's good too. And didn't the city actually lower the tax rate a bit in recent years?
They did, yeah. Since 2020, they've lowered the city tax rate by almost 8 cents.
Okay.
Which they estimate saves the average homeowner around $200 a year compared to what it would have been.
So the rate has been trending down slightly.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's tackle some FAQs, those frequently asked questions. We hit the big one, but let's nail it down. Voting yes on these bonds, does it increase the city tax rate?
The city's answer is a clear no. No proposed increase to the city's tax rate for these 2025 bond projects.
Okay. But, and this is a big but, could my actual tax bill still go up even if the rate stays the same?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is crucial. The city sets the rate, but the Dallas Central Appraisal District, DCAD, determines the value of your property.
Right, the appraisal.
If DCAD appraises your home value higher next year, then even with the same tax rate, your total tax bill will be higher because the rate is applied to that higher value. The city doesn't control the appraisal value.
That's a really important distinction. Rate versus appraisal value. Okay. What if the bond propositions don't pass? Does the tax rate automatically go down then?
No, not automatically.
Yeah.
If the bonds fail, the tax rate wouldn't just decrease on its own. Remember, that bond study committee found over $1 billion in needs across the city.
Right.
So if this bond funding isn't approved, the city council would have to figure out how or if they can tackle those needs within the existing budget. It gets complicated. And there's another catch.
What's that?
If a specific bond proposition fails, say Prop A for streets, the city legally has to wait 3 years before they can even ask voters about funding that same type of project again.
3 years. Okay, that's a delay. And just to confirm, voters get to vote on each proposition A, B, C, and D separately.
Yes, absolutely. They'll be listed individually on the ballot. You can vote yes or no on each one independently. Support some, all, none. It's up to the voter.
Perfect. Okay, last thing. For anyone listening who's ready to vote or wants more info key dates, where to look?
Okay, early voting starts April 22nd, runs through April 29th. Times might vary by location, so definitely check.
Check before you go.
Right. Election day itself is Saturday, May 3rd. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. that day. Now, the deadline to register to vote for this election has passed. That was April 3rd.
Okay.
And the last day to apply for a mail-in ballot is April 22nd. For all the details, where to vote, what ID you need, sample ballots, more info on the bonds, the 2 best websites are growgarland.com.
growgarland.com.
And the official county site, dallascountyvotes.org.
dallascountyvotes.org. Got it.
Both have tons of information.
All right, so that wraps up our deep dive into Garland's 2025 bond program. Phew, lots to cover there.
It is a lot.
We really hope breaking it down like this helps you get a clearer picture of what's being proposed, what the city's thinking is behind #GrowGarland.
Yeah, the core argument from the city is that these are necessary strategic investments. Investments to boost the economy, maintain quality of life, and critically, they plan to do it without raising the current city tax rate.
So as you think about heading to the polls between April 22nd and May 3rd, Maybe mull over how these projects fixing streets, boosting local business areas, updating the art center, enhancing the lakefront, how could they impact your daily life here in Garland? What could they mean for the city's future?
Definitely check out those websites, growgarland.com and dallascountyvotes.org, for even more detail. Talk to your neighbors. Get informed.
Absolutely. Make an informed decision on May 3rd.